Hey everyone, CJ here. Welcome to the video. Today I'm going to give you new exiles some tips for starting Path of Exile 2. This is a series I want to be starting to help new players to Path of Exile 2 learn the game and thrive. I have 3 videos lined up after this one, so like this video and subscribe. The first of the 3 videos being for new players looking to start solo self-found. The second of the videos being players looking to start hardcore. And the last being tips for endgame and maps. To start this video, I want you to think about the game in a different way. I want you to simplify all the problems you have in Path of Exile to 2 things: a DPS / damage problem, and if you think about the game in this way, the game will be so much easier for you. I promise. Okay, moving forward. We're going to talk about more foundational stuff first, and then we'll build a foundation. All of this advice is based on me teaching my friends how to play this game and seeing the things that they were struggling with when learning Path of Exile, because they were completely new to this game, like you. Timestamps will be linked down below in the description for you to come back to at any time. So if you need to re-listen to any part while you're playing the game because you forgot, then you can. So every class wants a certain base of armor. So for example, a strength class like the warrior will want armor base items. So you'll notice that the game drops certain types of items. It'll be called like plate whatever, and that's an armor base. Or strength. It's a strength base. These items will more likely have things like strength on them, etc. Int classes want ES or energy shield bases. Dex classes will want evasion bases. And hybrid classes like int dex classes like monk, for example, can use either an evasion base, an energy shield base, or a hybrid evasion energy shield base. And this goes for any other class in between that has or focuses on multiple attributes rather than one. Alright, the basics of the passive tree. When you look at the passive tree, it can be pretty daunting at first, but I want you to look at it in a very specific way, which is every class out of the 6 classes starts at a different point in the tree. When you look at this, there's going to be very clear 6 sections, one for each of the classes. For the most part, you're going to be pathing within this sextant, like this quadrant, like the 6 different quadrants, right? The sextants. The better stuff, if you will, is near the edges, kind of. You'll be wanting to work your way towards the edges, grabbing notables and keystones along the way. What do I mean by notables and keystones? They're like the bigger circles, the bigger passive points on the tree. They're stronger than regular smaller circles for the most part. Notables being stronger smaller circles, and keystones being kind of like unique powerful passives, as well as jewel sockets. With jewel sockets, don't worry about what you put in there. You can take the jewels out at any time, but here are a few things to consider. Don't waste points. Know where you want to go. For example, like we said at the start, you either have 2 problems, DPS or survivability problems. Say you want to get more damage. Look for things near where you are where there's more damage. But to be more simple than this, when you start the passive tree, you only start in 2 spots. Like you only have 2 directions to go, like left or right. For the most part, most classes, it's going to be defense or attack. Pick. If you're on softcore, you can pick attack. You can pick more damage. If you're on hardcore, you're likely going to pick more survivability. From there, it's always going to be like 2 choices. You got to think about the game in this way. You can't think, well, I'm going to just look in the middle and just grab this and then path all the way to the opposite side of the skill tree. No, make it simple. Stick to this. I promise you, you can make a build yourself this way. You won't have to follow any build guide. Just make it simple. Keep your decisions as little as possible. Okay. Now you're going to come to crossroads on the passive tree. And you're going to think to yourself, well, what do I need? What do you want? Obviously, if you're playing ranged, you're not going to want to go towards anything that has to do with melee. So look for those things. For example, you're using a bow. Look for bow things. If you write... Oh, this ties me into the next thing. Use the search bar. The search bar is in the top right of the passive skill tree. If you write bow in the search bar, it'll show all the passive points to do with bows. If you write attack speed, it'll show all the nodes that have to do with attack speed. Okay, so you're going to path to each of these. You don't want to path to anything really far away. Not at first, at least. You want to grab things along the way that go towards the edge. For example, you're traveling along the middle to the very end. Look at what connects to the middle. Which of those things do you like? Grab those things along the way as you get to the edge. Don't just go, I need to get to the edge because I really like that thing at the very end. If you spend all that time pathing, you're not going to get stronger, and you're gonna feel that because you're not getting stronger as you level, because you spent all your time pathing and just getting attribute points, which don't do anything for you really. Next. So that's just the basics of the passive skill tree. There is a lot more that goes with it, but you'll learn this with time. Something I forgot to mention here is if you're needing other attribute points, say you're a warrior, so you've been stacking strength because that's your main stat, but you need a little bit of intelligence for a support gem that you want to use, go talk to the hooded one and refund the passive. You can just change your attribute points to whatever you need. So changing a strength point that you've allocated and turning it into an intelligence point. It can be really useful, and you'll find yourself doing this a lot, actually, even in the end game. So yeah, I don't know how I forgot to mention that, but yeah. Also, as you're pathing through, when I said like, what do you want? I want you to keep in mind those two problems that we always want to be thinking about. Do you need more damage or do you need more survivability? Always keep this in the back of your mind when you're thinking about what to grab. Because obviously, if you're dying all the time and you're able to get either damage stuff or survivability stuff, you should be picking the survivability stuff. Don't be stupid. Just pick the thing that you need. Don't pick the thing that you want. As much as you want more damage. Everyone wants more damage. But it's not fun to die all the time. So, and you can't do damage if you're dead. So there's that too. If you follow this, you can and will be able to get to maps with making your own build without having to follow a build guide. However, I do know there's going to be some of you who just, CJ, I just want a build guide. I don't care if I'm following one. I don't care if I'm copying. Okay, for those people, just go to Mobalytics, just go to Maxroll. They have guides there, and it's exactly what you want. However, for those of you that want to be able to learn, or maybe even see if you can do this on your own, which I guarantee you can. I guarantee most people can. Then just follow these rules. You'll be able to do it. Sure, you might not be able to make it to, say, level 90, but I'd assume that by the time you get close to that, you would have learnt so many things along the way. By following these key principles, it'll carry you pretty far. Considering the people that I had to teach this to, they were getting stuck in the campaign, not even cruel yet, but just the first 3 acts, because they didn't think about these things. But after learning and applying these principles, they were able to get to maps no problem. Okay, I'm going to assume that if you clicked this video, one, you must be struggling in some way, most likely, but 2, you've probably been playing the game at least a little bit, like on your own. You're not like someone who hasn't played the game at all. Like you don't even have the game installed. So I'm just going to assume this. If you're struggling with ascending, you can always come back when you're stronger. It's simple as that. Just come back in a couple levels when you're stronger. it'll be way easier. Don't forget to cap your resists. It is so important in this game. I'll tell you, as someone who first played Path of Exile when it first came out, and as a Diablo player, I just was like, oh, I want damage, and then I didn't build any defense at all, and I hated the game. Like, I actually did not enjoy Path of Exile when I first played it all those years ago. I ignored resistances because I just wanted to play damage. I was a silly Diablo player. But then, and I hated the game because I kept dying all the time. I would just die to like a fireball. I would just die. If I wasn't killing things, I would just get insta-killed. And it was really frustrating and annoying. And back then, I feel like it was harder to get gear in a way. Then, years later, I don't know what made me come back to the game. But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just try and do it. I'm gonna try and learn this game. And I'm gonna do what everyone says and get resistances. Because I don't know. I was like, I'll just do it. Anyway, at the time, you could get resistances over 90%. Until like, I can't remember, like Synthesis League, and then they made it so you can't get over 90%. But after I did that, the game was so easy. I was like, wow, this is the game everyone was playing. And now you can only cap regularly to 75%, but that's okay, because 75% is still a lot. If you have 75%, which is capped, regular capped, this will help you immensely, especially in hardcore, but I'll leave that for the hardcore video. I mean, if you're going to start hardcore, I guess it's already obvious at that point. Don't waste currency. Don't waste currency on crappy items, especially in the early game before you get into maps. You don't get that much currency. I think they buffed it a little bit, but you still don't get that much that you don't want to just use your currency willy-nilly, especially with how crafting is right now. It's like pretty RNG and gambling. Okay, let's go over the basics of crafting. You want to get the highest item level base that you can, which is if you hold Alt, it'll show the item level of the item that you have. After you have your base, you're going to transmute it, use an Orb of Transmutation, or use an Essence. I'm going to have the process up on screen, but basically essences are, you'll find a pack of monsters encased in like crystals or frozen pack of monsters, and it will say essence of blah blah blah. You click on it, you kill the rare, it drops an essence. Essences in this game, in PoE 2, essences in PoE 2 are basically transmutation orbs, but guarantees a useful or desired modifier. So you transmute it, it turns blue, or you use an essence, it turns blue. Blue items or magic items can only have 2 explicits. What are explicits? Explicits are modifiers that are added to the item by the player. On the other hand, implicits are modifiers that are tied to the base of the weapon. For example, a shield will have block on it. It'll just always have block. I'm pretty sure, at least. I'm pretty sure all shields have block. Or, for example, there are like lightning quarterstaves that always have lightning damage. Stuff like that. Those are implicits. Anyway, blue items can only have 2 explicits. Yellow items, or rare items, can have 6. 3 prefixes, 3 suffixes. In general, those are called affixes. Okay, so 6 affixes on rare items. We're going to transmute, turn it blue, then we augment the item to get 2 affixes, and hopefully they're both good. Now, what is good? Well, life and mana, pretty good. Resistances, good. Damage, good. Now, I'm going to list some universally shit explicit mods, except in niche/certain builds, most of the time. So I'm not saying these can't work, and for the experienced PoE players, you know this, so I don't want to hear it. But here are the universally shit explicit mods that you don't want to see pop up. Thorns, accuracy, light radius, stun threshold, reduced attribute requirements, increased stun duration, life or mana on hit, unless you're struggling with sustain of either of these. The same goes for leech life or mana on hit and life regen. At least 100% item rarity is OP currently. It's really good. It doesn't seem to be much of an increased benefit past this point. People have tested at 203%, 200 and 300% item rarity and haven't found much of a difference. If there is, it's diminishing returns. Okay, so the general process of crafting is transmute / essence, augment. You see if there's two good modifiers or affixes. If there is, you regal and turn it rare. If good again, then you can exalt slam or just keep using exalted orbs on it. If you're playing SSF, like be lenient, let's say 4 out of 6. If you get 4 out of 6 affixes, that's really good in SSF until you get to really late game, then you can be more picky. If not, if the regal is bad, then you can optionally use a Chaos Orb here because it's the time when Chaos Orbs are most useful, because Chaos Orbs will remove an affix and replace it. So it's better for a 1 out of 3 chance than a 1 out of 6 chance to get rid of the bad mod. Okay, after that, you can exalt more. And then lastly, when you get to late game, you can use divines, which re-roll the mods. Like the mod's values, the affixes values. Something I forgot to mention is that when you hold Alt, you can see how an affix has rolled and its minimum and maximum possible values that can be rolled for that tier. And you can also see the tier of the affix on the right. You can see here it's tier 1 and we've rolled a max roll 7% out of 5 to 7% attack speed. Tier 1 being the lowest, and anything higher than tier 1 is better. So tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Tier 3 is better than tier 1. Another starting point is if you have a white item, you can just use an alchemy orb, and that brings you straight to 4 affixes. Greater essences also exist, but they're rare and in late game, and by the time you get these, you should have a grasp of the game. I would implore you to try different skills, especially during the campaign, but have a main skill or two to rely on. One for map clearing / AoE, and a second skill for single target / killing bosses / rares. For example, throughout the campaign, I played warrior first, and I got to try. I tried everything, and you get enough skill gems to be able to try everything. You may as well. By the time you get to level 45, your build should come online by that point. And let's generously say by 65, so when you've completely finished the campaign, or you've finished Act 3 Cruel, your build has come online by that point. If you don't like how your build plays at this point, reroll. There's no point. The chance of your build getting significantly better in terms of playstyle is slim. So either change your build or reroll. And I'm talking playstyle wise. I'm not talking if things aren't dying. I'm talking if you don't like the playstyle of how your build plays at this point, it's not going to change much past level 45 to 65. So experiment, especially prior to these points. In PoE 2, because there is less deterministic crafting currently, and everything is rolling and RNG and gambling, it's more important than ever for you to collect bases, like we spoke about at the start. But in this case of damage, for every class, your main source of damage will be your weapon. You want to find better and better bases of weapons. So when you hold Alt, you want them to be higher item level. The higher the item level, the higher the mods that can be rolled on it, the stronger the item can possibly be. This alone will see massive damage increases. I saw my friends get stuck because they weren't grabbing bases off the floor and crafting on them to see if they were better. They were just hoping they would find good items, which is possible. And you do kind of have to hope, especially in SSF, where you can't just buy items off the marketplace, off the trade site. So always pick up bases. For spell-based characters, most of your damage when upgrading your weapon comes from plus skills. What I mean by this, plus levels to skills. If you're playing lightning, it's plus levels to all spells or plus levels to lightning spells. That is what you look for extra damage. That is the main source of damage for spells. With melee and non-spell builds, this is less the case. You can find plus melee skills, but I found that it's not as necessary as on spell-based characters. If you find a mace, for example, that just has way more physical damage on it, it doesn't matter about +2 levels to melee skills. The increased physical damage will, in most cases, be a much larger increase of DPS. And you can check this by pressing G and looking at either your base attack or the skill, your main skill that you use to kill things with. If you see the number go up, you can trust that. So just you want to go for a bigger number here. Next, I want to talk about layering defenses. This gets more important if you play SSF and hardcore, but just for introducing the idea now to you, the new Exile. There are 3 main sources of defense in Path of Exile: Armor, Evasion, and Energy Shield. But getting one of these alone is just simply not enough. Other than resistances and flat HP, you need more. If you look on your skill tree, there are different passives you can get. For example, for warriors, you have things like block. For spell-based characters, you have things like Mind Over Matter, which make you take damage partially from your mana pool as well as your health pool, which is massive. It's like just gaining another health pool, basically. Or with something like Monk, for example, you have ascendancy skills that make it so getting evasion helps with physical damage reduction, aka what armor normally does. In addition to this, you have skills like Ghost Dance and Wind Dancer and Grim Feast. Each of these is another layer of defense. You can look in game to see what each of these do, but just adding any of these to most builds will increase your survivability drastically. Currently in the game, Armor is by far the weakest numerically, so I wouldn't suggest going Armor unless it's to go Armor Energy Shield. Energy Shield is by far the strongest. It just gives you so much effective HP that you just simply can't get going anywhere else. And Evasion on its own isn't reliable. You need more than just Evasion. However, Evasion in this game is really good. It uses an entropy system, meaning you can't just get unlucky because it rolled bad and you just die. Basically, you can't go on unlucky streaks or lucky streaks in this game. If it's 70% evasion, for example, you can pretty much guarantee that 7 out of 10 it's taken will be dodged, just because of how the entropy system works. You can't get unlucky or lucky. So evasion is more reliable than one might not expect. Whenever you're in town, always check vendors for upgrades and good bases to craft on. There are some useful vendor recipes when selling to the disenchant items vendor. There's always a sell items vendor, a disenchant items vendor, and a gambling items vendor. So there are vendor recipes from the disenchant items vendor, such as selling blue items for transmute shards, which isn't that useful, but you may as well be aware of it, and selling rare items for regal shards, which is very useful, especially in SSF. So start doing this early on. Runes and soul cores and sockets. So runes and soul cores and sockets, basically you can put sockets on your gear, which you can then put runes and soul cores being just more powerful runes. Runes can be offensive or defensive, depending on whether you put it in a weapon or armor. Use these all the time. You get loads of runes in this game. By the end of the campaign, you will have so many runes, but I can't say the same for sockets. So don't waste sockets until later in the game. Use it on items that you have just upgraded, not necessarily items you expect to replace soon. You'll want to unlock the salvage table as soon as possible. Once you get to Ogham Village in Act 1, you'll find Renly's tools, which will unlock the salvage table for you. This is super useful, especially for SSF. Basically, if you salvage weapons or armor with sockets, you'll get socket currency. If you salvage armor with quality, you'll get quality currency for armor. If you salvage weapons with quality, you'll get quality currency for weapons. Quality currency, like armorer's scrap and blacksmith whetstone, is a currency used to minorly upgrade your armor or weapons up to 20%. The reforging table which you get after killing the Molten boss in Act 3, gives you the Reforging table, or the 3-2-1 table, where you can take 3 of the exact same items and turn them into 1. So if you've crafted on 3 different bases of the same, you can combine them, but they have to be the same rarity. So they have to be all blue, or all white, or all yellow. So I guess they would rarely be all white because you would have wanted to craft on it first before doing this. So all blue or all yellow. This is useful for being resourceful, as it gives you an extra item to craft on. Okay, next let's talk about charms. Charms can be okay. They're not amazing. Res charms aren't that good. Resistance charms, that is. Ailment charms are good. And if you're unsure, I'll just say use freeze or the stun charm. Simple. But to be more specific, if you aren't going to use the freeze or stun charm, use what you feel that you die to a lot, I guess. So if you die to poison all the time because it's a poison map, then use the poison charm. If there's lots of freeze going on, use the freeze charm, etc. If your energy shield, you won't have to worry about bleed or poison. And if you go chaos inoculation, you don't have to worry about chaos damage at all. I found that freeze and stun is the most annoying, so that's what I use. And I think it's probably the best, especially if you're playing hardcore, because if you freeze or get stunned, you're probably going to die. Respec'ing in this game is cheap but expensive. What do I mean by that? Well, during the campaign, if you've just started, you don't have much gold. And gold, you don't get that much of it. However, once you get to maps, gold, you get so much gold, it's insane, that you can just respec whenever. And all of your characters share gold. So you just have to get one character to maps, play for a couple hours, not even that long, and you'll have a lot of gold. I don't even mean like you have to grind for ages in maps to get a lot of gold to be able to respec whenever you want. You only have to play for a couple hours and you can respec whenever you want on any character. But yeah, don't be afraid of respecing. But maybe be more careful with respecing during early levels before maps. Another thing is, so your stash is shared between characters in the same league. So if you're in softcore trade, all those characters in softcore trade share the same stash. If you're in softcore solo self-found, all your characters in SSF share the same stash. If you're in hardcore, all your hardcore characters share the same stash. They also share the same gold. So keep that in mind. Last few things. I highly, highly, highly recommend you get stash tabs, especially the map tab whenever that gets released. The map tab and the currency tab are probably the most useful tabs in the game. Other than that, I really like the gem tab. It's just nice QOL, but other than that, I don't think any other tabs are necessary, except if you are dead set on playing trade, then you need one sell tab. Definitely, you need one sell tab, so a premium tab. Other than this, a quad tab is nice to have just to be able to dump stuff in, and none of the other tabs are as worth it as getting just a tab bundle, because a lot of those things fit in a regular tab just fine, but the value on getting the bundle tab or just more tabs is more worth than getting, say, a flask tab. Okay, my last and final tip is I highly recommend you play solo self-found to learn the game. To me, solo self-found is the game. Softcore trade to me feels like cheating. It feels like a crutch of playing the game. I know a lot of people play it, but I feel like a lot of people aren't playing the game. Also, Path of Exile is balanced around solo self-found, so you really are getting the true experience of the game this way. You don't have to play hardcore, though. If you do want the most engaging experience, it's hardcore. Hardcore, you just have to focus all the time, which you probably won't get any other engagement, so to speak, anywhere else. Definitely not softcore. However, the way you have to solve problems in solo self-found is both rewarding, and also it'll teach you more about the game and its systems and crafting than softcore ever will, because let's put it this way. If you have a bunch of exalts you can craft in solo self-found and hope you get better things, In softcore, you can use an exile to buy a much better item, pretty much always, like an insanely better item. So take that as you will. Some people will be drawn to that idea. To me, it just feels like I'm skipping the game. But also, for me, I want to find the cool items. I like the idea of killing something and having a really good drop. It feels more rewarding, which I feel like most people who get into ARPGs, we like getting good loot. I don't want to get something that I didn't earn. I don't want to get something that someone else dropped, that dropped for someone else. I want to find it. So that's why I like SSF. Also, in Path of Exile 1, I feel like it taught you the game even more because the crafting system was more in depth. So you had to engage with more of the crafting systems, as well as there was more mechanics which aren't currently in Path of Exile 2. But that's okay, because you have a lot to learn already as it is. But yes, would highly recommend playing SSF to learn the game without relying on trading as a crutch. One final tip, use an item filter. NeverSink has a general one anyone can use, and soon FilterBlade will be a thing for PoE too. FilterBlade is a website that allows you to make and customize a loot filter easily, as well as the colors of the loot filter. 99% of the time, if you're stuck, it's either going to be because your defenses are too low or your damage isn't high enough. The other 1% could be a result of poor build decisions, like wasting passive points, but focus on making sure you can survive first, and once you're comfortable, turn your attention to boosting your damage. This is especially true for hardcore, where you likely have enough damage early on, and new hardcore players make the mistake of focusing on adding damage when it isn't necessary, instead of layering and adding more defense to their character. Some things to remember. It's early access, so things are likely to change and will change, but change for the better. I can only see this game getting better and better and better, and I've only seen PoE get better and better and better over the years. And PoE too, I'm having a blast with. In the short span of the time that the game's been out, I've got like hundreds of hours in the game already. Second, crafting is RNG and gambling right now, don't forget that. So it's just kind of how it is right now. If you don't get a good item, just disenchant it or sell it. It's fine. That's why we're picking up all these bases, which is kind of annoying, but it's just how it is right now. But yeah, look at someone like Rax. When he first started playing Path of Exile, he had people like me tell him to play SSF to learn the game back in PoE 1. And in such a short time, he's learnt the game so fast. And now look at him, new players look up to him for builds and advice on the game. So yeah, if you want to learn the game fast, especially in the future, maybe once crafting becomes a bit less RNG, it's the way to go to learn the game for sure. And use PoE2DB, the website, to check what affixes, prefixes, or suffixes can roll on gear or waystones and maps. My next 3 videos will be, again, on SSF, on hardcore, and on the end game / maps. I want to wrap up this video with a reminder that learning the game is a process, and it's okay to make mistakes. Overcoming these challenges is part of the fun. Path of Exile 2 is all about experimentation, so don't be afraid to try new things. And most importantly, enjoy the journey exile. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, dear viewer. If you could, I would appreciate it if you would leave a nice comment, like and subscribe. It really helps a lot with both the algorithm and will motivate me to make more content. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comment section below, and I promise to get to as many of them as possible. If you want me to make a video on a different topic or need help with a different issue, I'm happy to hear your suggestions. I want to keep these videos simple and easy to digest. No crazy spreadsheets or PowerPoint presentations or slideshows, I promise. More like a homie just helping you out with the game. And if you come into my Twitch stream at twitch.tv/LiLcxxj, I'll be there to help you with any questions you may have about Path of Exile 2, to the best of my knowledge. I hope this video helped. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. I'm taking the moment, starting all over, I wanna be free.